Okay.
Can you hear me now?
20s.
Did she give you a fair exchange? Your US
That was
cat?
par.
That's fair.
I got your 20 back.
Okay.
Still nothing, eh?
Should have my name and a phone number on a stamp. Make it quicker.
You want me to fill it out for you?
No, thank you.
We'll be right there,
It's a
Ian.
matter of trust.
What's the scoop? Are we live and on air? All righty, good to know. Okay, bring the meeting back to order. It is 1:06, and our next agenda item is 7.3, the draft strategic plan. And I'd like to welcome, where did Mr. McCormick disappear to? Oh, there you are.
Yep, I'm here.
Welcome, Ian, and
Thank you very much.
look forward to the presentation, and you can start anytime you're ready.
Well, thank you, Reeve, and it's nice to be back with you, members of council. I'm judging that, I'm guessing, of course, that you can hear me now, so hopefully that's true. What you have in front of you is the result of the workshop we did, I guess, about a month ago. There are a couple of versions of a draft plan. What I would like to do, if it's okay, is just to give you a bit of an overview and then get some comments from you. What you will notice is there's no layout really done to this plan other than just to make it readable. And the reason we do that is we just want to make sure that what we heard is actually what you want to have reflected in your strategic plan. And after that, of course, we can make it look the way it needs to look. There are two slightly different versions of the plan that you are looking at the moment. We call them version 3 and version 3.5, but in reality, the content is the same. We've just gone to a slightly different level. And in the plan, after we get through the initial pieces of like a letter from council, vision, mission, values, priorities, that sort of thing, we started to move into theming some of the ideas that you generated. So we did that, and when we did it, it seemed to make sense to theme those into what we had called pillars, and we referred to them pillars all the way along. And in your case, there ended up being 4 pillars around leadership, around infrastructure, around economy and economic development, and then quality of life for the people who live in the county. So there were those 4 pillars. Each of those is on a different page too. And within those pillars, below that, those gatherings are a group of 16 goals. Now the goal, so 3 goals or 4 goals per pillar. And those goals answer the question, what? What is it that is different about Kneehill County at the end of this term, or at least that this council has begun by the end of this term, than it was at the beginning of the term? In one of the versions of the strategic plan, that's where it stops, because answering the question, what, is a governance question. Sometimes, though, councils have asked us to kind of take the next level down into strategies or into tactics. So one of the versions of the plan that you have actually has a series of bullet points under each of the goals. And those are strategies or tactics. And those then would more properly belong with your management in a corporate business plan than they do in a strategic plan. But we wanted to show you this just so that you know that we heard what you happened to say during the strategic planning process. So Reeve, that's the difference then between the two plans. The front part of it is pretty much identical. The background just explains where we are at. You had set a vision for your community. You had said that the county, and I'm looking at 3.1 now, you had said the county is at the intersection of history and opportunity. Kneehill County is a forward-looking community that celebrates its rural roots. That was your definition of success for yourselves as a county. After that, then 3.2 is the mission about how we get from here to there. And you had said that, in terms of an action, was a rural community that embraces its agricultural lifestyle and an economically diverse future. So that's how you get from here to your vision. You also then developed a series of 5 different values: innovation, integrity, resilience, openness, and tradition. And within each of those, then we heard what you said about them as you were discussing. So Michaela and I worked on defining those. The definitions that you see for the values that are in your draft strategic plan right now aren't the dictionary definitions. It's basically what we heard from you. So I certainly would test that with you as well. So if you would like, Reeve, to work through this strategic plan draft in terms of chunks, this might be a good place to stop. So I would have a couple of questions for you. The first is, how are we on your vision, your mission, and your values? Do you recall that discussion? And the second then is the conversation about what level of plan do you want to have? Do you want to keep it at a purely governance level, so just pillars and goals? Or do you want the public-facing plan to include the tactics and strategies as well? And about half the municipalities we work with go one way and half go the other way. I mean, the shorter version sometimes is more publicly accessible, is more readable by the public, but it's lacking some of that detail. So before we actually get into the specifics of the plan, Reeve, I'll turn it back to you and your colleagues to see if you have any comments on those first 2 parts. And this is a draft, of course.
Well, what's everybody think? I'm thinking the shorter version would probably be better, because as time goes on, the details and the way we move ahead could change, and somebody could look back and say, well, that's not what you said. But that's just my point of view. Anyone else care to weigh in?
So, Ian, I guess this is Ken speaking. I'm not quite clear on what you're asking us to give you feedback on right now. So can you just help me get a better picture of what you're asking for?
Thank you. Reeve, you answered one of the questions. Well, you gave a response to one of the questions. Do you want the long version or the short version? We don't lose anything, even if you pick the short version, because we will work with your administration on the tactics. You are interested in the what changes about the county. Some of those strategies or tactics are about how we do it. So long version versus short version is one of the questions. The second question is vision, mission, values. Do you recall those as being correct based on what we talked about a month ago when we got together?
Not everybody at once here. Okay, Councillor Benner.
Hi, Ann. This is Debbie. I think you've captured what we thought with our vision and mission statement. I don't feel it's too long. A little bit of the previous and some of the new. So I like what I see here.
Okay. So, Reeve, if I may, at this point, I'm not hearing a lot of conversation, and I also want to respect the time of council. If you have comments after today that you want to pass on to us, you're more than welcome to go through your administration and pass those on to us as well.
Go ahead, Councillor Pinner.
Okay, so if we're moving on, if everyone is happy with the vision and mission, I like shorter when it comes to a strategic plan because I want the ratepayers to read it, and I don't want them to lose interest in it. So I don't need it to be too short. I want the information to be in there. And I like how you presented both options to us here, Ian. So we'll continue the conversation here amongst us.
Hi, this is Carrie. I also agree that I like the short version as well. It doesn't overwhelm the ratepayer when they are having to look at this. It helps them to become more focused on what we as a council are trying to do for them as the ratepayer.
Thank you, Reeve. I'm hearing consensus to go with the shorter version. It doesn't mean we will lose anything at all. It just means that the version that gets made to look pretty and is provided to the public is shorter than the other one. We'll still make sure that the operational pieces show up where they need to in a corporate business plan.
Deputy Reeve King.
Ian, yeah, this is Ken again. So one of the things that confused me a little bit about the presentation in both the short and the long version was the placement of priorities for 22, 23. And I felt they were kind of out of step with where I would anticipate to see them, because again, they're very operational in direction as opposed to higher level stuff. So I do like, I am also a fan of the shorter version because I think it does tend then to get more attention than a longer draft. So I would be on the same side as the rest of them, but that placement of the priorities really kind of threw me for a bit of a loop, so.
Certainly, and Reeve, the reason we did that was if you were to look at the first few pages, the introduction, the overview, vision, mission, values, and then priorities, that's almost an executive summary of the strategic plan. This is the stuff we want to work on first. That said, this is your plan. And if it doesn't make sense to put those priorities there, we can identify them some other place. And when it comes to layout, if this is done using a graphic design, those would probably make more intuitive sense if I let a graphic designer get at them or your communications staff get at them in terms of placement. So thank you for that, Councillor.
Just in response to that, Ian, I would say that, you know, my idea of a strategic plan is a much longer view document. And so the placement of those immediate priorities where they were kind of makes it look like it's a much shorter vision than perhaps what we were looking for. And so that's the only reason why I questioned where they were placed. Is I feel that it's appropriate that they stay there as immediate focus, but in my mind, the strategic plan is like a 5-10 year kind of lookout or maybe longer. And then to have those priorities up front like that, it just seemed to me that it sidetracked what we were trying to do with the strategic plan. So I certainly wouldn't want to see them where they are currently. Just that's my own personal feeling on that. So
Thank you.
Does anyone else want to weigh in? Doesn't look like it.
Reeve, if the silence is an indication, I will continue to move on then. And I'm certainly happy to go back if people are interested in that. We had developed, or you had developed, those essentially 4 theme areas around leadership, infrastructure, economy, and quality of life. If we look at the shorter version then of the plan, so essentially if we ignore the strategies or the bullet points, the first of your big bucket areas was around infrastructure. And we defined that slightly as building and maintain infrastructure that meets the ongoing needs of residents and business. And within there, of course, we had goals A, B, C, and D around managing infrastructure, the road network, waste management, and rural water requirements. If those are the appropriate goals according to council, and I don't want to make that assumption, then we had created on the next page a series, or lower down, a series of performance measures which were associated with the goal rather than the strategy. So there is a tie between those two. If the goals are correct, the strategies may be correct. If we have misstated the goals, we will have to reevaluate the performance measures. So with that, Reeve, if anybody had any comments on the bucket of high quality infrastructure, I'd be more than happy to respond to that.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Councillor McGee.
For me, it's more of a formatting thing again. When you list it on your first page under 5, you have it in a different order than when you go to the 5.1. So 5.1, in my opinion, should match the one on under 5. You switch them around. 1 and 2 are traded places in this document. I think that should match.
Thank you, Councillor. You're right. They should match. Thank you. If you'd like, Reeve, I can move on to the second one. Again, acknowledging that if you have other comments later on, I'm happy to reserve, but I want to respect your time as well.
Sure, go ahead.
Sure, thank you then. The second big bucket, if you like, is around economic resilience, about a robust and adaptable economy. Within that, you had identified 5 kind of theme areas around economic activity, revitalization of hamlets and targeted growth there, economic fostering the environment where business can grow while maintaining resilience to external market and environmental forces. And finally, your fourth one was being recognized as a leader in the provision of quality agricultural products. So those then are the 4 big areas. How those get delivered, so those are the answers to the what question. How those get delivered, some examples were those strategies that you may have had a look at, but there's also a recognition that strategy will change based on what the county requires, what the external environment puts onto you and your own capacity and things like that as well. So Reeve, I will turn it back to you and your colleagues to see if there are comments on the economic resilience pillar, goals and measures too.
Comments from anyone?
Reeve, I'll continue then.
Yes, you can.
Thank you. The third goal was around quality of life. So maximizing quality of life for those who choose to live in Kneehill. Within there, you had a list also of 4 goals, one around sustaining the unique rural lifestyle, one around fire services, one around keeping youth in town and or in the county and engaging with those people. So we actually ran those 2 things together because they were 2 slightly different themes. And the fourth one is about attracting new citizens while also retaining existing residents. And as with the other goals, there is a performance measure for each of these goals. And there are strategies or tactics as well, which will likely change over time. So Reeve, I'll turn that back to you again.
Councillor McGee.
I like how you have it set up and everything's really well, but my one concern is the vocabulary for item C, keep youth within the county, will not fly well with youth.
Okay.
It sounds like we want to cage them in, and I think what we want to do is show them that we value them. Could I suggest expand youth engagement and appreciation of youth populace?
Sure, I've written that down.
Or anything that works more that way, but I want it to be more of a celebration of our youth as opposed to we have some control over them. I don't want them to misinterpret the intent.
Thank you, Councillor. I've made a note of that.
Oh, Councillor Cunningham.
I just want to echo what Councillor McGee said. I agree with you in the wording. I think it's not that we necessarily want to keep them here so they never leave, but maybe they're going to go and they're going to get training at Olds College or somewhere, but we want to make it attractive so maybe they come back. Or someone like myself that said when I graduated, I'm going to Calgary, I'm never coming back, realized what a gem we had here and came back to live and raise a family here. So yeah, I agree with what you're saying.
Thank you, Councillor. As I recall too, part of the conversation was a net increase. So we recognize that we are going to lose some, but hopefully we gain more, either by some of those coming back or by bringing net new in. So both of your points, councillors, make a resonate with me in terms of how we need to slightly restructure this.
Okay, I guess on to the next point.
Thank you very much, Reeve. The last of your pillars was around leadership. Now, we have started to put the work of council, the head of the beast, if you like, at the end of the strategic plan in terms of the pillars. And the reason is this supports everything else. You are there for reasons of things like infrastructure and providing a good economy and a quality of life. And the way you do it is by providing effective leadership to people who live in the county and businesses and organizations and staff and volunteers and all those people. So under effective leadership, again, here we have another 4 goals. One about fiscal sustainability and resilience, one about engagement broadly, as opposed to some of the directed engagement we mentioned elsewhere. One, respectful and collaborative relationships, both within the municipality and beyond, and being a leader in the principles of good governance. As before, there are a series of strategies that that will change over time, and there are a series of performance measures associated with this as well. So I'll turn that back to you, Reeve.
Any comments? Councillor Cunningham, I'm sorry.
Well, that's okay. So Ian, I just kind of jumped ahead. I know I'd made notes last night. On page 207, there was hold regular ratepayer engagement meetings virtually, which kind of is a little bit different from where this one is. I just want to make sure that we're really, like our priority will be to meet in person and have those in-person engagements as opposed to virtually. I mean, we know we've had to for the past 2 years, but I think our rural communities really appreciate the in-person engagement.
Sure. Thank you, Councillor. And the way that was phrased was virtually and around the county. So the implication was there were around the county ones were in person, and the virtual was just another way of doing it. Maybe what I'll do is even just swap them to say that the prominence of in person is preferable or important. And it got to the idea of the principle of meeting people where they are. If they didn't have time or weather was bad or they didn't feel like driving, they could join virtually. But there was also then the desire to meet people in person as well. I can make a small change to that for sure.
I guess, Ian, just a very small thing on number D, be recognized as a provincial leader in good municipal governance. Does that make sense?
So yes, thank you very much. Obviously, that's just a grammatical mistake, and that's easily fixed.
Anyone else want to weigh in?
Reeve, by the silence here, I suspect that we have by and large provided you a good reflection of what we heard and what you provided at the sessions about a month ago in Red Deer. So with that in mind, we can certainly make these small adjustments, make it look like a strategic plan that's suitable for public consumption, and certainly provide it back to you as a final version. The idea of this so quickly after the session was that while the iron is hot, we wanted to get your recollections to make sure what we heard was actually what you meant. And then for the most part, it sounds like that is the case.
Okay, what's council's thoughts? This is what they heard. Did they hear wrong? I think it's captured a lot of the stuff, or a lot of the discussion that we had. And it's going to take a while to get this done, but that's what strat planning is all about, is not get it done tomorrow, but get it done, whether that be to the end of the term, whether that be 10 years down the road. Because it's going to keep developing as we keep moving forward, because things will change. And I think it's good to have this in the background so that we know where we want to go and how we get there. Yeah, over time, that could be different ways.
You're absolutely correct, Reeve. We also had a conversation about, one of your colleagues pointed out too that there are priorities in here, that the priorities for 2024 and 2025 are going to be different. I used the term about no strategy survives first contact with reality, but this gives you the best chance to be successful over the long term, recognizing that there are going to be changes that are going to be required between now and 2025 when this is intended to be at least well underway.
Anyone else have comments? Deputy Reeve King, I was waiting for you.
I have a reputation, Ian, sorry.
Okay.
So you talked about providing us with a final version, and I'm assuming that we'll have some editorial control over how that may or may not be the final version. But I think that you've done a pretty good job. In fact, you've done a good job of collecting what I remember from the strategic planning session. And to me, it's more about how does it look when it's finalized and what ends up in what order within that strategic plan. And so certainly I would support moving toward a more finalized version with, as long as I have the editorial right to come back and say, maybe we'll switch a little bit of this around yet. So good job to this point. I look forward to seeing what the finalized or more final version looks like.
Thank you, Reeve. Absolutely, you maintain control over this. This is your document. This reflects what collectively looks like, success looks like for this council. So absolutely, you have final editorial control over this.
Are there any other comments? I know we'll have the opportunity to discuss this in future meetings, but I think this is a good start. Well, I mean, it's what you heard, and I think we're good with that, and look forward to the, maybe not the final version, but the next updated version.
Thank you, Reeve. Thank you, members of council.
Oh, Councillor Christie.
Yeah, this is Wade. I wasn't able to participate in the meeting, but I really appreciate what's there, and I really like what I see, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
He didn't do it, he just wrote it down. Lucky puck.
He's a good cat herder then.
I'll take it.
All right, if there are no other comments, questions, concerns, that brings us to the end, does it, Ian, or are we looking at the conclusions?
Reeve, thank you. If you want to look at the conclusion as the other pieces, you absolutely can. It's really just a wrap up, ties up a couple of pieces together. In terms of next steps with this, we will work with your administration just to tidy up a couple of those pieces that you and your colleagues reference. Then we will get it to look pretty and get it back to you as kind of the first final draft, if you like.
Okay, I'll give you an opportunity, Mike, Mr. Hogan, to chime in if you choose. Do you see anything there that's glaring, missing?
No, through you, Mr. Reeve. I think administration is supportive of the whichever direction council wants to go. As Ian said, it is your plan. You know, we appreciated, and I know that staff appreciated the ability to contribute to the plan and to work on it with council and to provide some information for council's process. So I know that was appreciated. I think with once the plan is approved, I know administration will have a lot of work to do in terms of developing what those strategies and tactics actually look like on the ground, starting to build plans around those, how to achieve them, timeframes, all that sort of stuff that obviously we'll be back in front of council several times to go through that. And to look at other ways that maybe aren't included, but are maybe things the county should be considering and making recommendations on that. So I do support council's look at going with the shorter version and tying the other things into a different document that's related to this, because I think they'll expand a bit.
I just wanted to give you the opportunity to see if there was anything you heard that was possibly something that maybe we didn't hear. So, thanks for that, Mr. Hogan. Any other concerns, questions, comments? Okay, I guess you've done an awesome job, Ian, and we look forward to seeing the next version.
Thank you very much, Reeve. Members of council, good luck with the rest of your meeting today.
Okay, thank you, Ian, and all the best to you and Michaela. She did a lot of writing there.
She did indeed. I will pass on your regards. Thank you very much.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Just a tidbit between us. I found it really interesting to participate the way I did because your perspective of how you watch things is more as a watcher than someone that's been part of the process, partly because of bad connection, but you notice things differently. And with your robust level of conversation and points brought forward, I thought in quite a short period of time was quite remarkable. I thought the whole process went really, really well. Impressed.
Well, it looks different on camera than it does in person, so.
It does. Yeah. Well, and every facilitator is different, and he just accomplished a lot in a shorter time. I was amazed. Because when I looked at the agenda, I thought, 2 days, come on.
We are streaming, so this conversation should actually be live if we're gonna have it.
Oh, sorry.
Okay? Just reminder.
Okay, well, I guess that brings us to the end of our open agenda. We still have some appraisals in closed session. So does someone want to bring us back into or is there anything else, Mr. Hogan?
I think if just one small thing, if there's a housekeeping component, we had a discussion, but we've got no formal
Okay.
direction to record coming out of it. It's more just a housekeeping one, so if I'd suggest that just council direct administration to continue working with a consultant to finalize the strategic plan.
Okay,
And then that way, anybody reading the minutes knows what the outcome of that discussion was.
okay. So somebody care to make a motion? Deputy Reeve King.
So then I'd make the motion that council direct administration to continue preparing the finalized version of the 2022 Kneehill County Strategic Plan.
Okay, is there any discussion to that motion? Seeing not, call the question. All those in favor? And that is carried unanimously. So that brings us to the end of our open agenda. Would someone like to move us into closed session? Councillor Christie.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion to move into closed session. We will be dealing with section 19 of FOIP, confidential appraisals. All those in favor? And that is carried unanimously. And here we go again.